One of the elements that we sometimes tend to forget is actually very important on your performance and on the way you interpret music is the fingering. It certainly is for the music of Bach. We have seen that in previous videos and also in the practicing hours, and we'll talk about that more. But actually it's also the case with music of Mozart. The fingering you use is tied in directly with the technique of keyboard playing, and certainly on historical keyboards it has a major influence. In this video I give you 5, so to say, tips on the way I use in daily life fingering with Mozart, and they are connected, as I said, to the keyboard technique. We're touching that, but the focus for this video is on the fingering itself. Let's go. So one of the first and maybe most important elements to me, and I think for historical keyboard playing in general and certainly on the clavichord, is the hand position. It is a little bit more maybe technique, but has to do with fingering as well, because the implications of having your hand in a closed positions on the fingering are huge. So certainly on clavichord, when you have your hand in the right position, you are in the perfect position to make a beautiful sound, because the key is, so to say, in the same direction as your finger. So from the moment on you're going to spread your hands, you enter actually more the 19th century. Beethoven, of course, started with that, and also with Mozart's music. There is no escape in spreading your hand, even with Bach, because only if you play an octave, you have to spread your hand. But this basic technique is something you should maybe consider, even if you play on a modern piano, because it will improve your touch. If you have to jump, if you have to make octave jumps, or just replace your hand, just replace your whole hand as a whole as much as possible. If you have to reach a certain note that's further away than your hand allows, and you really want to make it cantabile, legato, then use your wrist to guide your hand to that. Never just spread your hand and go to there. Always divide the arm weight. That's a topic I could fill a whole video with. So second point, and that's really connected to the first point of the closed hand position, is that you often will see that if you want to keep the hand closed in the closed position, you often will get a kind of articulation, because leaving the key without hitting another one at the same moment of just related to each other gives no legato sound, but gives an articulation. But you will see often this music of that period that still is wanted. We go into a more cantabile style that in fact started with Bach. We have seen that. That's the whole evolution to in the whole 18th century. It's a more cantabile, more opera-like singing style way of playing, also on keyboard, but the articulation is still there to give the music clarity and to give a good definition of fragments and of musical patterns. So for instance, I can give many examples. I give a few. For instance, in the D major sonata, München sonata, Kirchenverzeichnis 284, in the variations you have this passage. So here I could reach to the B, but see what happens then with the hand. It leaves the first finger. I should have to take this with the third finger then, which gives kind of awkward feeling on the historical keyboard to have this D plate, a fast note plate with the fifth finger. But if I just make the jump very smoothly, it gives a very nice, again, division of the two musical figures. Also here, I start here with the G sharp. There is a bow, which indicates that it is a complete figure, but anyway, I can just make the release very gentle. And then you have this division of, as I said, the musical fragments. So the repositioning of that hand is very important. It's a major tool for your performance, I think. Then a third tip, and that's something that even in today's piano class, even at conservatory, I mean, I have had that lesson over and over again, is to avoid as many times as possible to have the first finger and the fifth finger on the upper keys. Certainly on the clavichord, and that's the best instrument you can learn to develop a perfect touch, because you will be punished immediately. I'm not saying that it's not possible to play with your thumb or your fifth finger on an upper key, and sometimes it's necessary if you have octaves both on the upper keys, of course, that's the nature of the octave, then there is no escape in doing that. But in general, try to avoid it as much as possible. So if you have a passage like that, I will not go to my fifth finger here just to play the next figure in the same hand position. I will end with the fourth, reposition my hand, and you will see that Mozart indicates bow. So sometimes you see the effect of this even implemented in the composition as a musical, something musical that the composer is wanting. So try to avoid that as much as possible. So fourth important thing, and that's something that I see people make, that is not making a mistake against it, is a personal decision, but at those days, finger substitutions, so where you change silently the same finger on a note that's down, that's something that is, I think, starting in Bach's time, I believe it's not used that much. I believe personally that also in Mozart's time this was something that is not really embedded in the culture of keyboard playing at the time. It will change towards Beethoven's later works, and certainly after that. But even after that, and certainly also with music like Chopin, his own fingerings, you see a lot of repositioning more than substitutions. The practice of ever substituting your fingers just is coming from a pure legato way of playing. So that's actually something that is really late 19th century, 20th century, as I believe. It's a very natural thing to do if you don't pay attention to that. For instance, if I start the variations theme, I could even play this with 4 and reposition to 3, because then it's more comfortable to continue. So if you don't pay attention to that, or never have paid attention to finger substitutions, go play some music and see for yourself if you're implementing that in your way of playing. If you do that, think about this, and that's my fifth tip. In fact, are you really making your own fingerings, or are you just playing from an edition with fingerings, which makes sense if the fingering is okay, but even then, are you paying attention to that fingering, or are you just not paying attention to any fingering? Which for Mozart, if you are a player that knows how to play this music, is not always necessary to do. I make my personal fingerings always very detailed. One of the reasons is if you are playing a concert and you're a little bit nervous, your fingering will guide you through some passages that otherwise maybe are a little bit difficult, or that needs some very close reading again while you're under the focus on the concentration bubble, so to say. So that's a very practical reason. But the other thing is, if you want to avoid as many as possible finger substitutions, which again is connected to the hand positioning, is again connected to the use of the wrist, it's all connected together, then there is no escape from making your own fingerings very carefully. So also on this topic, I could fill a whole video with that and even make a course on that, and maybe I should do it once to just give you a very deep insight over several videos, or maybe in a book. I don't know how I come to make those fingerings. And it's a personal daily use or practice. It's not something that I grab a book from the bookshelf and just copy the fingering, because you won't find any one source that tells you how to play this sonata of Mozart or any music of that time. There are just some guidelines. There are some very detailed guidelines as well. We'll talk about some of those sources in the future, but the principles I gave you in this video, I think, make sense, and I would say as a closure, try to implement them once and see where you come, and let me know in the comments how that works out for you. Would be great to know. Anyway, if this is your first time here on this channel, I'd love to have you subscribed. We have now a Mozart month. We will have in April next month also a Mozart month. I will do the München Sonatas 1, 2 and 3. We'll have a lot of live streams. If you want to be notified of the live streams, you can hit the bell icon next to the subscription button, and then you will be notified either by mail or push notification on your mobile phone. I hope this video was helpful. Stay tuned for next videos, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.